Hi, this is Jeff from the Ozark Mountains. That's in Missouri in the USA. Well, today we're working on our Model 2 again, this time the keyboard. You might remember in the last video I had a little problem with the function keys not functioning, so today we're going to try to take care of that thanks to a keyboard rebuild kit from TechSelect. So without further ado, let's get started. Thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. They not only do PCBs and flex PCBs, they also have 3D printing service, injection molding service, they do CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication. They also have a thriving maker community where you can share projects and check out what other people are doing. For your next project, head on over to PCBWay. So first, a little TRS-80 Model 2 keyboard trivia. Found this out thanks to a fellow named Pete, who's the one that curates the Model 2 archive, which I'll put a link to below. He found in some old Radio Shack documentation, it talked about there being two different models of the Model 2 keyboard. You can differentiate them from the front by the shape of the dots here. If they are square, it is a Cherry keyboard. If they're round, it is Keytronic. You can also look at the back, and if the serial number is down here under the label, it is Keytronic. If the serial number is here, it is Cherry. Evidently the Cherry keyboards are a little more special, a little more rare. Although I think Pete said he did have one that had the serial number down here and had, or the serial number here, but it actually had the Keytronic keyboard. So maybe somebody had swapped it into a different case at one time. At any rate, I thought that was interesting. So now what we need to do is take out a few screws around the periphery here, and we can get into this keyboard. Okay, now you might remember somebody had scratched their social security number into everything, which was a bright idea from back in the day. If your stuff got stolen, it would have your social security number on it. And then, of course, they started using their social security number for everything for identification purposes, and it wasn't good to let that get out or put it on anything. So people stopped doing that, thankfully. So anyhow, that blue tape there was just covering up somebody's social security number, presumably whoever the first owner of this was. I don't know if people in other countries have similar government-issued ID numbers. Originally, it was just for pension benefits, but then it got used for everything. So, here we go. Something else I just noticed. These rubber feet here look kind of how you doing, as Dave Jones would say, so I wonder if those have been replaced. So, gonna lift that off of there. I've still got the screws stuck in the back there. And let's see if we can coax them out without dropping them on the floor. These little dishes that microwave food comes in work great for holding screws, and they're actually very heat and chemical resistant, so you can use them for all sorts of things. 63081 TH 72381 and August 18th 81. So I would say this was made between June and August of 81. I don't know why all the different dates, but it's kind of interesting. So this was a later Model 2, I think. Or maybe this is when it was repaired. There were some problems with it, and there were some repair attempts. I don't know. And it's got a case of the fuzzies in here. You can pull the board out. And it looks like this plug is keyed. I'm still going to mark it. It's always a good idea to mark the plug so you know the correct polarity to plug it back in. You don't want to unplug it and then realize it was not polarized. Yeah, see, this has a little piece of plastic shoved in there and it's missing a pin here, so you can't plug this in like that. Okay, and we found yet another date in the top by the same initials as there. So the same fellow is into this within a few weeks. Then somebody's in there in July and somebody again in August. Those are just dates, not initials, so don't know what they did. It's probably a repair with all the multiple dates in there. I took everything out to the garage and blew the dust bunnies off of it with the air compressor. And the keys are fairly clean. They are a little dirty on the sides in some places, and they pop off pretty easy. So I've got my patented bucket of water here, and we'll just plop the keys in there. I did take pictures of everything, and I'll get another container for springs. I just have to keep track if all the springs are different lengths. Sometimes it looks like they might be color-coded. It looks like the darker keys tend to have... No. Okay, I think they're all the same spring. I was going to say it looked like some of the darker keys had green springs and the lighter ones white springs, but they're kind of mix match, so we'll just pop them off. I got my key puller here. And there we go. Oh, okay. So the control key has a thicker spring. This was a thinner spring. That's curious. And let's see what shift has. Well, maybe we can sneak the Z out first. And the Z also has a thicker spring. So there's this one here in the corner, which I don't remember what it was. Had the thinner spring. And the lock button also had a thinner spring. Okay, so you get the idea. I'm going to go through here and take the buttons off, note which ones have special springs, dunk them in the water. We'll let them soak while we do the rest of the keyboard. We now have a naked keyboard. I've wiped it down a little bit. Now, just to replace the contacts on the back, you would need to strip the keycaps off of here. I just wanted to do that to clean them at the same time. All the keycaps are slightly yellowed. They are all double shot injected, so it would be possible to polish them and bring them back to the original color. On darker keys, I don't like to try to retrobrite them because a lot of times that does not come out well. So, as for springs, all the springs are the same except for these two, which were a skinnier spring, and this one, which was a thicker spring, and the spacebar had a pink spring, which I'm guessing is a little stiffer. Anyhow, we can see here, indeed, we have a Keytronic keyboard for Tandy, and a Signetics keyboard encoder chip. Some other chips right here, which say 22-950-3A and 22-908-03. Not sure what those are. And this is just a Jelly Bean 74. Oh, I can't read that. Okay, gotta get the magnifier. Old man eyes. 74366A. Okay. Then there's a few resistors and a capacitor over here. Oh gosh, that was... I had these things fall out, which go in here like this. And looking at these now in my hand, I realized they are not symmetrical. They kind of tip this way. So I'll have to figure out what direction those really go in there to put them back correctly. But I'll take those out. Flip our keyboard over. And there are a number of screws along the back here we need to take off. And this keyboard says it was made in July of '81. July 81. It doesn't give a day. Serial number 8794. So maybe the dates written inside the plastic are when certain processes were done to it. I don't know. So anyhow, we've got a number of screws to take out here. These are all tri-lobe type screws for plastic. Let me zoom in here as much as I can. You can't see real good as far as I can zoom in, but the threads seem to have different diameters. And it's blunt. Generally, a screw for plastic is going to be blunt and not pointed. You don't want to use sheet metal screws for plastic. It's a good way to bust the plastic. Okay, so I'm going to take the rest of these screws out. I'll note any which are different lengths. So far, these two are all the same. And then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, we got all the screws out. They were all the same, and I'd like to point out here that they nicely numbered each key on the back. So if I would have known that, I would have referenced the spring type to the key number, but I did not. And now we can just lift the circuit board off of there. There we go, nice and simple. The shininess is throwing off the auto exposure. We'll just wipe that down with some alcohol. That's some type of silver plating, it looks like. And what we're worried about is these foam pads. Now these don't look too bad, which is surprising. Oh, they do look rather oxidized. So this would be F1 and F2 here, and yeah, those do look quite oxidized. So the foam looks decent. I've got a spring hook here, and the idea is, I have to get on my old man glasses so I can see up close, that pick out the foam and foil. Yeah, the foam is quite deteriorating. I'll see if I can get you zoomed in on the pad. If you can see there how it looks like a Dalmatian. It's kind of spotty. It's hard to do without getting a glare. That should be nice and shiny. That's just the Mylar coating is wearing off. And I got the new pads from Texelec, texelec.com. They have several different vintage computer related things, and they have the reputation of having the best repair kit for these foil and foam keyboards. They put a lot of effort into making them high quality. They come with new foil, new foam, and the new plastic backing piece. So on our key here that we started on, we need to get that plastic piece off of there too. Yeah. It's not stuck down with adhesive, it's just kind of stuck because it's been on there for 40 something years. There we go. Okay, now we've got the old one off of there. I'm gonna blow any fuzz out of that. Nope, that got little bits of attention, wondering what I was doing. Come here a little bit. Come here. Oh, you can't hardly see her, can you? She's right here. See her nose. Yep. Say hi. Say hi. That's a rather odd camera angle of a dog's head. Okay, back to work. So then once you get the old one out, you sneak the new one in. Yep, and I'll give them all a wipe with a cotton rag when I'm done to get any oil from my fingers off of there. It feels like the little plastic disc kind of catches on something in there. I've not been able to... It feels like that little plastic disc, yeah, it catches on some snaps on the side there, so you've got to get under it here and here to get it popped out. There we go. Oh, that's much better now. Yep, okay. Now we got the removal process down. You just got to know where to put your spring hook. I've had this spring hook for a long time. From the late 1980s. And its intended purpose is when you need to put a spring on something, it's got one end for pulling a spring so you can hook it to something and one end for pushing a spring. And it's very handy for all sorts of purposes, for getting small stuff apart. No, that wasn't the ticket. That got it down too far. Okay. So I think if I take this tip and just push on there a little bit, it'll get it seated. And once it's all the way back together and you use the key a few times, it should be okay, I think. I don't know though. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to play with this a little more and then come back. Okay, I think I've got this down now. So just getting the spring hook under the edge of the plastic part, and those things will pop right off of there. And then they go flying everywhere. And the foam really is quite dilapidated on them. And then I'll drop a shiny new one in each spot, trying to avoid touching the mylar. Use a small flat blade to kind of get it started seating down in there squarely. And then poke it down like so. There we go. Sometimes one edge won't clip. So you just got to kind of reach down there and push on the plastic piece on the bottom to get it to clip in. I imagine after using the keys a few times, they'll have a tendency to do that themselves. There we go. That's the idea. And then wipe them down in case you touched them with your finger. I would not use any alcohol on these. That's liable to destroy the foam. You see this one wasn't snapped down in there very good. So I'll redo that, and then we'll just do the rest of the keyboard. I changed my installation technique a bit after I had more experience doing these. And I also wanted to point out that some of these new foil and foam pads have a noticeable cant to them. It's not too bad. This is just a result of when you're die cutting something that's compressible like foam or rubber, it compresses, and sometimes it'll compress a little on one side faster than the other. It's really hard to avoid. I think they've done a good job. So I'm going to put the slope away from this part right here. This is the narrowest part of the opening. So we want the part that is kind of overhanging a little bit on top toward this side. And this is going to be harder to do with the camera in my face, but you can hear that snap. That is the plastic that's on the bottom of this pad. This right here, this plastic is snapping into 4 fingers that are on the bottom there. And I'll check each one of these. Make sure they're all snapped in, and they are. So I need to wipe down all of these pads now to get my fingerprints off of them. And then we can install this back on the circuit board. Okay, time to start reassembly. Got a clean rag here. I'm just gonna lightly wipe off the contacts like this. Oh, there was some dirt there. One more time. This says June 3, 1981. So it looks like the parts for this keyboard were made between June and July. Maybe the final assembly was in August. I'm not sure what all the different dates meant. Okay, and now we've got this part. Another advantage to going back and wiping down all the pads, get your fingerprints off of there, is that you can double check that you got the plastic backing snapped down into each catch. And let's see, how are we gonna know when we're lined up? There's a couple notches out here and here where these LEDs go. And this hole is going to have to go right there. I can see the threads. So if we kind of, should be about like that. Okay. So it's just that the plungers were pressing up. So hold up this side of the keyboard. I had that same issue with the Commodore 64 keyboards and actually made wooden spacers for those since I work on so many of them, just to space it up. I'm going to put in just a few screws going across the keyboard to keep everything lined up. When reinstalling screws into plastic, we want to go backwards to start with, anti-clockwise, and you'll feel the screw drop down into the existing threads and then go clockwise. I'm not tightening these all, or I'm not tightening the screws all the way down. You want to wait till you get all of them started. So I'm going until it touches the board, backing off about a quarter turn. You wait till you get all of them started. That way you make sure that all the holes are lined up. With this many holes, there can be slight alignment issues. And you're just giving everything a chance to go back where it needs to go. Okay, so I'll finish putting these screws in. I'll show you real quick how I finish cleaning the keycaps. And then I'm going to wait overnight for the keycaps to fully dry before reassembly. Okay, the rest of the very complicated key cleaning process is a toothbrush, scrub the key, put it in clear water. That's all there is to it. Some people don't like doing this. I don't mind it at all. It's not hard to do. It makes a big difference. And it's a good time to watch some YouTube videos and let your mind think about something else. When I say these are double shot keys, what I mean is that the lettering on them is not printed. If we look here, we can see we have a beigeish key and black lettering. If you look on the inside, you see the black. For the darker colored keys, black key, white lettering, inside is white, so they injection mold the outside first and then do the inside. So everything is a solid color. So if you polish this with some plastic polish, you'll remove the very thin outside that is actually yellowed, and you'll wind up with a brand new looking key. And you're moving so little material, you would never be able to measure it. Unless you do it like every week, which I wouldn't recommend. Anyhow, I'm going to finish cleaning these keys. I'll make sure they're rinsed off good, take them out, blow them off with the air compressor, set them upside down like this on a towel so they can dry overnight. And then tomorrow we'll put it back together and test it. Okay, it is the next day. Everything's cleaned up. I did not soak the case halves in the sink. I didn't want to disturb the writing on the inside, so I just took a rag slightly dampened with some Formula 409 or a mild cleaner like that, and wiped it off. I've got the keys laid out here in order. I find it's easiest to do it that way. I've got springs started, and the keys do have a direction. On some of them it's hard to tell, like on the arrow keys here, which one of these is which. Besides the shape of the key being slightly different, if you look at the top of the key and you flip this over, this edge of the key, which is the top, is straight up and down, and this edge of the key is like this. And I think that is probably important for these little black doodly bobs for the space bar. Since this is flat on the back, I'm guessing this should be like that. So I've got an angle toward the front. It'll be the same way as that post. That's what I'm guessing, because I did not pay attention when I took it apart. Anyhow, the job now is not very exciting. Just snap all the keys back down there. Make sure they feel good. I only put one row of springs on at a time. That way I don't knock off springs on an adjacent row. Just like that. That one didn't have the snap the others did, but it It's holding on well, and it's got the same feel. So, yep. Okay. Anyhow, I'm going to put these keys on. These are all the same. Remember, the space key had this pink spring which looks slightly different than the other springs. And there were two little weenie springs like this. Ooh, blurry, blurry. They really like each other. Anyhow, they're smaller. They're obviously different. And those go on the locking keys, which is here and here, as I recall. I made a map, so hopefully I'll get those right. Oh, it's the keys with the LEDs. Yes. Okay. That makes perfect sense now. So LED keys get the little weenie springs. All right. I'm going to pop this together, and we'll pause again for the space bar to see how that goes, because that'll be a little different. And then we'll try it out. I thought this might give you a good idea of the difference in the springs. The springs for the LEDs are smaller in diameter, and they set on top like that, so they're not going to block the light. And the springs for all the rest of the keys except the space bar set around the outside like that. And a space bar key looks similar, it's just the spring is pink. And there are these two supports here on either side. I think the flatter side goes toward the back. That would match the keys. This is the back of the key. It's going to be hard for you to see, but it's got a flat spot on the back and it's sloped toward the front. So if we put this in like this, it will match. On this side, I've put it in and I've used a little piece of paper there to hold it in place. Let me get you pointed down so you can see what that hooks over. You can see this little white piece of plastic in here. This is what this black piece needs to hook around. So I'll get the flat part to the back. Okay, I think I have it in there. Hard to see with the camera in the way. Nope, it's below it. That's what I had to do with the other side, was just kind of fiddle with it a few times. And there, I launched that skinny spring off of there, and it's on the floor. Okay, there. It's going to be rather hard for you to see. I'll try to point you down a little more. You might just be able to see that the top peg is on that plastic piece. And I lost my piece of paper on the other side. Made one for this side too. So I'm hoping that's just enough to keep them in place, but to allow for some movement. So now I'm going to try popping these keys on. I don't think I'll try to film popping the spacebar on because it's going to be kind of difficult, but you've got the post in the middle and these guys have to come up into here, so you got to align all three things at the same time. You're right up there with walking and chewing gum, and I've got to find that spring I launched on the floor before I smash it. So when we get this put all together, then we will go over to the computer and test it. Okay, we're over at the Model 2 and it's booted up, and I pulled up the directory, so obviously the keyboard is somewhat working because I've been able to get started. I created a keyboard test program using the TRS-80 GP simulator. Link to that below. That's great, by the way. You should try it out. So we'll go into Basic. And then we'll load KB test whack basic. Okay, see if I can zoom in a bit here for you. Okay, so this is the entire program. We input one character, we print the ASCII number of that character, and we go back to 10. So this way we don't have to worry about the character itself being printable. We just have to print out its equivalent ASCII number. Okay, and we'll type run, enter, and it's not going to tell us anything. And just go through here and press all the keys, make sure they all register. And, you know, breaks the program. Could have saved that one for last. Okay. The control's not going to do anything on its own. If we do like Control C, it'll break. Okay. And lock is a caps lock or a shift lock. 3349, that works. A, S, D, F, G, H. We'll have to check the shift key some other way. Caps lock works because I used it before. And if we go, we'll have to check repeat in a different way, and space 32, yes. Oh yeah, everything works. Excellent. So we just need to check the shift keys and repeat. So if we hit break, you know, right now, capital A, oops, caps lock is on. Small a, capital A, that works. And if I go repeat B, it's going to repeat B, that works. All right, everything works. Awesome. We do need to go ahead and put the cover back on this thing. And I will also post a link to this little keyboard test program in case that's helpful to anybody. Well, we got our Model 2 keyboard fixed. I added my sticker on the back to remind myself what I did and when. And just for some fun, I added my initials and the date on the inside to go along with all the others. So maybe in 40 years, somebody will find that and wonder who the heck this Hey Birt character was. Refurbishing this was not a bad job. Once you get the hang of flicking the old foil and foam pads out of there, it's not too difficult at all. And then making sure they're snapped back in there, it's pretty easy to do and it went pretty quickly. Cleaning the keycaps and waiting for those to dry was by far the lengthiest part of the process. I will put a link to where I got the foil and foam kit in the description down below, along with a link to the little test program I made to test the keyboard. Thanks to everyone for helping to support the Hey Birt channel through Patreon and other means. It is greatly appreciated. If you want to find out some more information about that, well, look in the video description down below. Any questions or comments? I would love to hear from you. Just leave them in that comment section down below. And until next time, bye.